Hey folks, welcome back. Say it with me. You treated me like trash, and now you're mad that I took myself out. That's the quote they need to choke on, my friends. Let it burn into the part of them that thought you were disposable, because that's what they did, didn't they? They didn't just walk away. They made you feel like trash first. They made you question your worth, like you were nothing but an option they could pick up and put down when it was convenient for them. They didn't say it, but they showed it. When they ignored your messages while watching your stories, when they made you beg for the bare minimum, when they gave you silence and called it space. But really, they were entertaining someone else. Come on, my friends. Let's stop pretending they didn't know exactly what they were doing. They gaslit you, made you feel crazy for asking for clarity, for calling out the distance, for needing honesty, and while you were drowning in confusion, they acted cool, colder than ice, while you were showing up, giving your best, trying to hold the connection together. They were out there treating your loyalty like background noise. Some of you were in a situationship where you gave your heart to someone who never even gave you a label. Others were in full relationships, years deep, only to be cheated on, replaced, ghosted like you never existed. And some of you weren't even dating yet. But you fell. You showed love. You showed up. And they saw that light and took it for granted. They took your kindness as weakness, your consistency as desperation, your love as something cheap. And when you finally needed just a little bit back, some respect, some truth, some effort, they vanished, ghosted, blocked, blamed you, or worse, they strung you along, left you on read just long enough to keep you hanging, knowing damn well you deserved more. Let's call it what it is: emotional manipulation. Some of them used your body and called it love. Some used your patience as their playground. Some of them told you just enough to keep you hoping, but never enough to commit. They turned your heart into a doormat, wiped their ego on your dreams. They drained you, then blamed you for being empty. And when you finally cracked under the weight of it all, they pointed the finger and said, "See, you're the problem." But let me tell you something, folks. You were never the problem. You were the entire blessing. You were showing up in ways most people can't even imagine. And now that you're gone, now that you're silent, they're starting to feel the ache. They'll never admit it, but they feel it. The guilt, the echo, the loss. Because you don't realize how powerful you were until the energy's gone, until the calls stop, until the texts don't come, until the one who used to fight for you no longer answers the door. So let's stop sugarcoating what they did. Let's stop rewriting the story to protect their feelings. They had you in their hands and they dropped you like trash, like a disposable lighter, used up, tossed out. And now? Now they're trying to act like they're unbothered. But the truth? They're haunted. Not by what you said, but by what you've become without saying a damn word. Say it with me right now: I don't return. Drop it in the comments like a sword. Press that like button if you've ever been discarded like garbage and came back glowing. And subscribe, because this isn't the end of your story. This is the rise. Stay with me. Number 1, the rejection was a setup, but not in the way you think. They didn't throw you away because you were trash. They threw you away because they couldn't recognize treasure with filthy hands. Let that sink in. Let it hit like the slap they deserved, but never got. Because here's the ugly truth, my friends. They didn't reject you because you weren't enough. They rejected you because they didn't have the capacity to see value when it was right in front of their face. You were love, loyalty, fire, consistency, and they treated you like you were replaceable, like some backup option, some emotional doormat they could wipe their ego on after running around with people who couldn't even hold a conversation without filters and facades. And now you're here, wondering why it hurts so much, wondering if maybe it was your fault. Maybe you were too much, too emotional, too present, too giving. But pause. Ask yourself this. If you gave your best to someone who didn't deserve even your worst, is that your failure or theirs? Imagine this. You're a sword, forged in fire, built for battle. But you handed yourself to someone who used you like a kitchen knife. They didn't understand what they were holding, so they mishandled you, dulled your edge, then blamed you when you stopped cutting clean. So they tossed you aside, into the dirt, like a broken thing. But guess what? That rejection was the fire you needed. Because swords don't get sharper in praise. They get sharper in pain, in heat, in silence. That moment they dropped you, that was your turning point. That wasn't your downfall, it was your rebirth. And yet, here you are, still wondering if you were the problem, still going back to the messages, the memories, the nights you couldn't sleep, thinking, what did I do wrong? Wake up, folks. You didn't do anything wrong. You just gave your fire to someone who couldn't handle the heat. Let's call it out, raw and unfiltered. They used you, drained you, made you feel like you had to earn love that should have been given freely. You tried to fix things. You tried to communicate. You lowered your voice just to keep the peace while they raised theirs to win every argument. You became smaller so they could feel bigger, and they still walked away like you meant nothing, like you were trash they outgrew. But hear me now, you were never trash. You were never too much. You were just too real for someone fake. You're probably wondering, but why did they act like I didn't matter? Why did they move on so fast? Why didn't they choose me? Because they weren't capable of depth. They didn't know what to do with someone who actually cared, with someone who showed up. And when people don't know how to receive love, they sabotage it. That's not on you. That's on them. You were the blessing they mistook for a burden. It hurts, I know. Rejection slices deep, especially when you were genuine. But let me break this lie right now. Rejection is not proof of your unworthiness. It's proof that you were in the wrong place. You don't plant roses in garbage bins. You don't serve wine to people who are used to cheap liquor. And you don't fight to be seen by people who keep their eyes closed. The fear you feel, it's not real. The fear that you'll never be enough for anyone, that you're doomed to always be the one who loves more, that everyone will leave. That's not truth. That's trauma. And it's time to burn it to the ground. Because the longer you hold on to that lie, the longer you stay beneath your own power. I need to tell you something direct, because sugarcoating it would be disrespectful to your pain. You forgot who the hell you are. You forgot that you were the one who showed up, the one who stayed, the one who held space, gave love, made effort. And now you're sitting in silence, questioning yourself when they should be the one on their knees begging for another chance to even witness your presence. So let's flip the story. What if that rejection was never a loss? What if it was a setup, not for breakdown, but for your breakthrough? What if the very thing that shattered your heart was the key to waking up the part of you that was always asleep, your true self, your inner warrior, your unshakable worth? Because that's what this is. This moment right here, it's not rock bottom, it's the forge. It's the fire that sharpens the sword, the pain that burns away the weakness, the silence that replaces dependency with discipline. You're not here to win them back. You're here to win yourself back. This journey isn't about getting them to regret. That's just a side effect. The real game is becoming someone so powerful, so glowing, so whole, that they regret losing you on their own, without you lifting a single finger, without a single word. And that starts now. Say it with me, and mean it this time. I was never too much. They were too little. Write it in the comments. Let it be the vow you speak to your past self. Let it echo for every time you were left unread. Let it scream for every time you questioned your worth because of someone too broken to see it. Because this is only the beginning. And in the next part, We're going to show you exactly why they're already starving for your energy, even if they're pretending they're not. They're performing, but inside, the panic is growing. Stay with me, we're not done yet. Number 2, emotional starvation, why they're already craving you. They never thought the supply would end. That's the brutal truth most manipulators live by. They thought you were a faucet, always running, always pouring, no matter how dry they left you. They thought your love was infinite, your validation guaranteed, your emotional labor on tap, because they trained their ego to believe one sick little lie: you would never stop giving. But you did. And that, my friends, is when the hunger began. You see, emotional starvation doesn't look like crying or breaking down. It doesn't look like begging or texting. It looks like silence. It looks like you not reacting. You not showing up. You not doing the thing you always did. Chase them, fight for them, feed their ego like it was your job. Now, the table has turned. They're scrolling your page, re-watching your stories, clicking your old photos, rereading the messages you used to send when your heart still had hope. They're not doing it because they miss you. They're doing it because they're starving. Starving for that hit of attention, that fix of importance, that moment where they felt seen, adored, needed. But now, that feeling is gone. You stopped feeding the addiction. And what happens when someone's emotional drug gets cut off cold? Withdrawal, craving, obsession masked as apathy, and they'll never admit it. Oh no, they'll post like they're fine, laugh like nothing's changed, move around like they've moved on. But that's just performance, because deep down, something's off, something's missing. You. They don't just miss your presence, they miss the way you made them feel about themselves, the way you reacted, the way your face lit up when they walked in the room, the way you texted back fast, the way you stayed, forgave, explained, gave chance after chance like your worth had no limits. But now, the light they once dimmed is gone, and the darkness is eating them alive. Let me say this loud for the folks in the back. They never expected to lose access to you, because they thought your kindness was weakness. They mistook your patience for desperation. They believed your heart was desperate for any kind of connection. So they pulled back, tested your limits, fed you breadcrumbs, just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to actually nourish you. You were starving, and they had the nerve to keep handing you crumbs like they were feeding royalty. But now the roles have reversed. You've become the one who is scarce. You've become the mystery, the thing they can't control, the thing they can't predict. And when someone loses their emotional supply, that loss becomes louder than any text, louder than any scream. Imagine this. They used to wake up to your messages. Now they wake up to nothing, just silence, emptiness, a ghost of the person they thought would never leave. That's the hunger. That's the panic. That's the moment they realized they were never in control. You were, because you had the power to give or withhold. And now you're withholding, and they are starving. They'll try to play it cool. I'm unbothered. I've moved on. But they'll start doing the math in their head. Why haven't they checked on me? Did they meet someone else? Are they over me? Their brain will write stories, scenarios, nightmares, and you don't have to say a word, because their panic will do all the talking. Don't forget who you are. You were the sun in their cold world, and they took it for granted, so now they sit in shadows, hoping, waiting, starving. Not for your love, but for your reaction. Don't give it. Don't you dare. Because every second you stay silent, every moment you stay glowing without them, you're tightening the hunger around their soul. You are no longer their emotional buffet. You are not their therapist. You are not their rehab. Let them sit in the silence they gave you. Let them feel the weight of the absence they created. Let them taste what they served you, emptiness. And if they come back, It won't be love, it'll be hunger. And you're not a meal anymore. You're not available for those who only remember your value when they're starving. Say it with me now, loud and proud. I don't give emotional access to those who wasted it. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you, because what's coming next, it's even worse for them. The hunger was just the beginning. Next, they'll spiral. Stay with me. Number 3, don't try to be missed. Become unreachable. They told themselves you'd always be there, that no matter how they treated you, how many times they ghosted, ignored, played games, you'd be waiting, like a fool, like a doormat, like someone so desperate for crumbs you'd never walk away from the table. And for a while, maybe they were right. You posted the stories they'd see. You waited for them to notice. You dropped hints. You checked if they'd watch. You hoped. But hoping is what happens when your heart still believes they deserve a second chance. Let me tell you now, my friend, they don't. You're not here to be missed. You're here to become unreachable. A diamond doesn't scream to be found. It doesn't dance for attention. It doesn't post thirst traps in hopes someone finally sees it shine. No. A diamond is buried, deep, rare, hidden, and the longer it's buried, the more priceless it becomes. That's you now, buried in your own growth, protected by your silence, covered in your transformation. And they're still trying to find the version of you they left behind, the version who replied, who cried, who begged, who checked in after they disappeared, the version who kept proving their worth while being treated like an option. But that version of you, it's gone, dead, buried, unreachable. They thought their distance would make you chase, that ignoring you would make you louder, that withholding affection would make you perform harder for it. But something changed. You stopped showing up for people who show up only when it's convenient. You stopped performing. You stopped trying to be missed. And let's break the cycle right here. Stop posting for them. Stop crafting captions you hope they'll decode. Stop pretending you're unbothered when you know you're still trying to get their attention. That's not silence. That's strategy wrapped in self-betrayal. And you're done betraying yourself just to be noticed by someone who didn't even have the eyes to see you in the first place. True silence isn't passive, it's powerful. And it doesn't make noise, not even digital noise, because people who evolve don't broadcast their glow. They live it. They become so unreachable, so emotionally elevated, that the person who thought they had you figured out can't even find the shadow of who you used to be. And that's when the real regret starts to haunt them, not when they see you trying to be okay, but when they see nothing, when there's no sign of the old you, when your timeline becomes sacred, when your presence becomes rare, when the energy they used to feed off of is completely unavailable, permanently. You don't owe them a window into your rebirth. This is where Stoicism becomes your shield. As Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. Don't show them your transformation. Don't post it. Don't explain it. Don't announce it. Let them feel the ache of your absence in silence. Let them sit in the mystery of who you've become. Let the questions torment them. Let the silence echo where your voice used to be. Because they don't deserve an explanation. They don't deserve a front row seat to your evolution. They had access to you, and they wasted it. Now they can wonder who you're with, wonder where you went. Wonder why their games don't work anymore. Wonder how the person who once needed them now walks with power they can't understand. They'll call it cold, call it ego, call it fake, but don't flinch. Because the ones who called you too emotional are now the ones drowning in emotions they can't label. They're not hurt because you're gone. They're haunted because they can't reach you anymore. That's what burns. That's what breaks the ego. That's what drives them mad. They don't miss you. They miss access. And you, my friend, have cut off the supply completely. You've gone dark, deep, distant, untouchable, because you're no longer performing for the person who played you. You're no longer reaching out to the person who pushed you away. You're no longer proving anything to the one who never saw the truth in the first place. You've vanished from where they last looked. You live where they can't follow. Say that to yourself now, and say it out loud. I've vanished from where they last looked. I live where they can't follow. Write it in the comments. Let it be your shield. Let it be your line in the sand. Because in the next part, we're diving into the mask they're wearing and the war going on beneath their fake smiles. Stay with me. This silence, it's just the beginning. Number 4. They're suffering in silence, but ego wears a mask. They'll never show it. Not the regret, not the breakdown, not the spiral they're now living inside. No, they'll mask it, dress it up, filter it, post it with captions like healing era or unbothered. But that's not power, that's panic, that's survival dressed in style. It's what the ego does when it's drowning. It pretends to fly. He'll laugh louder in photos. She'll post more stories than ever. They'll go out more, smile bigger, make sure the world sees them happy. But it's all an act, a desperate performance for an audience of one, you, because you were supposed to chase. You were supposed to fall apart. You were supposed to check in, give in, break first. But when you didn't, when you stayed silent, when your energy disappeared like a ghost they couldn't touch anymore, that's when the pain started to creep in, quiet, slow, undeniable, but they'll never admit that to you. Not in a text, not in a call, not even in their late-night notes app rants. Because pride is a cruel god. It demands silence, even in suffering. So instead of saying, I miss you, they say, I'm thriving. Instead of, I'm lost without you, they post, self-love season. But inside, the mask is slipping. Let's be clear, my friends. People don't suffer loudly anymore. They suffer behind screens, behind reels, behind passive-aggressive quotes about peace and growth that sound strong but reek of insecurity. They suffer through silence because admitting they're hurting would mean admitting they were wrong. And ego would rather die in private than live in truth. That's what's happening right now. Whether they're in a new situationship or pretending they never noticed your absence, it's there. The damage, the confusion, the internal war. Because here's the twist. They expected you to collapse. They counted on it. They were banking on your need for closure, for validation, for just one more hit of their attention. But when you gave them nothing, when you didn't beg, when you didn't try to fix the silence they created, that's when the mirror cracked. That's when they started questioning everything. The mind breaks, not in arguments, not in screaming matches, but in stillness. And that stillness, the one you're mastering, is driving them insane. Because silence gives them no feedback, no control, no narrative to twist. So now they're stuck, alone, surrounded by a crowd but still empty, loud online but dead inside, performing joy while privately drowning in thoughts they can't unthink. They're haunted by your strength, by the fact that you didn't play the role they wrote for you, that you didn't act out the breakdown they expected. They're haunted by the version of you that's evolving without their validation. And let me break it down for you even harder. They're not just missing you. They're terrified of who you're becoming, because the stronger you get, the more invisible they become. And ego doesn't know how to handle invisibility. It needs attention to survive. It needs reaction. It needs proof it still matters. But you gave them none of it. And now they're starving in the silence, trying to convince the world and themselves that they're full. But you and I both know the truth. They're not healing. They're hiding. They're hiding from the fact that they lost the one person who would have stood by them, the one who saw them, believed in them, forgave them, the one who gave them chances they didn't earn. And now, that person is gone, not angry, not bitter, just absent. And absence hurts more than anger ever could. Because they can't fight silence. They can't manipulate stillness. They can't control what they can't reach. So now they suffer, not because you hurt them, but because they hurt themselves, and now they're stuck living in the aftermath. Let them wear the mask. Let them post the quotes. Let them pretend. Because behind every fake smile is a memory they can't erase, a guilt they can't shake, a question they can't answer. What if I never find someone like that again? And the truth? They won't. Because people like you don't come around twice. You were rare, you were real, and now you're unreachable. Say it with me, right now. They hide the pain I now refuse to absorb. Write it in the comments like a wall they'll never climb again. You are no longer a container for the pain they created. You're no longer a mirror for their broken ego. You are your own reflection now, and it's blinding. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to show you exactly how your silence became their obsession, and why the mask, it's starting to crack. Number 5. Become the trigger, not the responder. Stop asking what will trigger them. Stop wondering what post will get their attention, what quote might make them think, what angle, what story, what song will stir something in them. That's not power, that's performance. That's you still playing the same game, just quieter. And you weren't born to beg for breadcrumbs of validation. You were born to become the storm they didn't predict. Because let me tell you what real power looks like. It's not texting first. It's not trying to accidentally pop up on their feed. It's not passive-aggressively hinting you're over it when you're not. Power is silence. Not silence that waits. Silence that dominates. The kind that makes them uncomfortable. The kind that makes them spiral. The kind they feel in their gut because it says one thing loud and clear. You don't have access to me anymore. You don't react. You reveal. You reveal who they really are without your energy holding them up. You reveal the hollow echo of their confidence without your validation inflating it. You reveal how empty they feel when your light is no longer there to reflect their fake shine. They didn't want you healed. They wanted you hooked. They didn't want peace. They wanted control. And you shattered that the moment you stopped showing up as the responder. Now you are the trigger. Like thunder in a clear sky. Unexpected, loud. Terrifying to those who thought the storm had passed. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't post some dramatic goodbye. You didn't throw shade or write poetry in pain. You just stopped. You removed your energy like a curtain dropping mid-performance, and suddenly the show couldn't go on. Do you understand how disorienting that is for someone who fed off your response? Your texts were their fuel. Your anger was their reassurance. Even your sadness was something they used to feel important. You crying. That made them feel powerful. You reaching out again. That made them feel wanted. You defending yourself. That made them feel in control. But when you gave them nothing, when the reaction dried up and the game ended without warning, that's when the panic set in. Because silence isn't indifference, it's dominance, it's psychological warfare at the highest level. It forces the other person to face the part of themselves they've been running from. And you? You're not part of the game anymore. You are the reminder of everything they broke and everything they'll never have again. Let them wonder. Let them squirm in uncertainty. Let them scroll through their camera roll, their texts, their memories, trying to decode when you stopped caring. Let them study your silence like it's a foreign language, because it is. They've never known a version of you that doesn't react, doesn't reach, doesn't perform for their approval. This isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs to prove that they do. This isn't about sending a message. It's about being the message. Every time you walk away without a word, you're sending one. Every time you don't look back, you're showing them they never really knew you, and that terrifies them. Because the real trigger isn't the angry text. It's the silence that leaves them alone with their thoughts, They're going to play it cool. Of course they will. Pride is a mask with 1,000 layers. They'll joke more, they'll party harder, they'll act like they're unfazed. But inside, they're cracking, because they didn't lose someone needy, they lost someone necessary. And that realization, that's the trigger. They won't tell you that, though. They'll keep the act going for as long as possible. But energy doesn't lie, and silence doesn't need to scream to be heard. You've become the thunder they never saw coming. You've become the moment they realized the storm wasn't outside, it was inside them. Say it with me now. I don't react, I reveal. Drop it in the comments like lightning. Let the world feel it. Show them you've stopped dancing for attention. Show yourself you're no longer explaining your worth. Let your silence shake the ground they thought was solid. And stay with me, because in the next part, we're stepping deeper into the chaos they've created for themselves, where your glow becomes their guilt, and your absence, their addiction. Number 6. Your energy was the addiction. Now you're the withdrawal. They didn't love you, not really. They loved the way you made them feel. They loved the reflection of themselves they saw in your eyes, the version of them that looked desirable, adored, wanted, important. You were their emotional mirror, their applause, their safety net, their fix. But that mirror? It's gone now, and they're spiraling. They thought they loved you, but what they actually loved was the way you kept their ego alive, the way you forgave too fast, replied too soon, showed up even when you had nothing left to give. You were their emotional oxygen, feeding a fire that only burned when it was fanned by your presence. And now they can't breathe. You took back your energy, and without it, they're shaking. Don't let the stories fool you. Don't let the "I'm fine" posts, the party pics, the spiritual quotes fool you. That's not peace. That's panic. That's a person watching their main source of emotional fuel walk away and realizing they have no idea how to create warmth on their own. They're not sleeping like they say they are. They're doom-scrolling at 2 a.m., checking your page, wondering if you've forgotten them. They're not unbothered. They're obsessed, curious, angry, desperate for control they no longer have. The truth is, they didn't expect withdrawal to hit like this. They didn't expect the silence to feel like suffocation, because you weren't just a person, you were the supply. Your energy was their emotional drug, and now they're shaking, sweating, spiraling through every stage of emotional detox. Stage 1, denial. They'll reach out. Stage 2, anger. How dare they not chase? Stage 3, obsession. Who are they talking to? Stage 4, despair. Did I really lose them? Stage 5, silent collapse. All while pretending everything's great. But you know better, because real silence always reveals the truth, and now they're trapped in it, alone. No more energy to feed on, no more constant reassurance, no more ego inflation from your love, just them, their thoughts, their emptiness, their regret. And still, they won't say it. They won't admit how much they depended on your presence just to feel whole. They won't admit how much your attention regulated their worth. They won't admit they needed you more than they ever showed. But it's written all over their behavior. They view your story 5 seconds after it's posted. They drop a like on something from months ago. They post something vague and immediately delete it. They go silent and then reappear. They want to test the waters, see if there's still a connection, but you've already drowned the bridge and built a new kingdom from the pieces. Because your glow, it didn't start when they showed up. It began the moment they lost access. You see, they were never addicted to your love. They were addicted to what your love did for them. And now that they're alone, the crash is hitting hard. They'll search for another source, another you. But there isn't one. There's no app for what you gave. No filter for the realness you brought, no substitute for the type of loyalty you offered so freely. You made them feel like somebody, and now, without you, they feel like nobody. Let them spiral, let them suffer. Because what they're calling healing is really just withdrawal, and what you're calling distance. That's the first step of freedom. They don't deserve another sip of your attention. They don't deserve a shadow of your energy. They used it, abused it, expected it. Now they miss it. But they'll never get it again because you've become untouchable, not out of spite, but out of sovereignty. Say it now, and say it like you mean it. Their access ended. My glow began. Drop it in the comments. Let the world know what happens when a giver finally cuts the cord. Let them feel the absence. Let them taste the silence. Let them crave the connection they shattered. And stay with me. Because in the next part, we're going to expose what they really fear. The day they see your glow and realize it no longer shines for them. Number 7. Make them regret the day they underestimated you. They'll lie awake at 2 a.m., staring at their ceiling, wondering how the one they ignored, blocked, discarded like garbage, became the one they'd now die to reach. That's not fiction. That's what happens when someone plays stupid games with someone who was never meant to be played with. They thought you were common, that your presence, your love, your loyalty, your availability meant you could be found anywhere. They mistook your patience for desperation, your softness for weakness. And now? Now they're facing the haunting realization that you were rare, the kind of rare that doesn't come back around, the kind of rare that glows even brighter in silence, the kind of rare that turns pain into power and heartbreak into a throne. You were always rare. They just thought rare meant replaceable, that they could toss you aside, explore their options, mess around with knockoffs, and somehow, someday, come back to you when they were done figuring things out. But this isn't retail. This isn't a return policy. This is your life, and the version of you they left behind. That version doesn't live here anymore. Let's not sugarcoat what they did. They underestimated you, took you for granted, thought you'd break, thought you'd wait, thought you'd keep the door cracked open while they went and chased every low-effort, surface-level thrill. And now that door isn't just closed, it's sealed, locked, burned down. There's nothing left to come back to but silence and shadows. And that silence, it speaks louder than any message you could have sent. It says, you don't get to know me anymore. You don't get to see who I'm becoming. You don't even get access to my evolution. Because you didn't rise out of spite. You rose out of survival, out of necessity, out of the divine realization that you never needed them to begin with. Let's take a moment here, because some of you forgot who you were. You begged, you pleaded, you lowered your standards, you watered yourself down just to be digestible for someone who didn't even have the taste for real love. You shrank so they could feel big. You held space for someone who wouldn't even hold your hand in public. You turned your soul inside out just to prove you were worthy. Of what? Of being chosen by someone who didn't even choose themselves. Let's be brutally honest. They didn't see your value, not because it wasn't there, but because their vision was cheap, their standards were shallow, and their heart, it was too full of ego to recognize authenticity when it was handed to them on a silver platter. But the greatest revenge, it's not a comeback post, it's not looking good or moving on just to get noticed. It's being so far above, so far evolved, so far removed from who they thought you were, that they can't even touch the shadow of who you've become. And that's where you are now. You've become untouchable, not because you changed to impress them, but because you evolved to honor yourself. Your glow isn't revenge, it's revelation. It's the truth hitting them like a freight train at midnight. They fumbled someone unforgettable. They played games with someone they weren't even qualified to speak to. And the worst part, they know they'll never get another chance. Because you don't return, you rise. Let them regret. Let them replay every message they ignored, every call they declined, every moment they could have chosen you, but didn't. Because now, they don't get to speak to this version of you. They don't get to be seen by this light. They don't get to pretend they deserve your grace. That time is over. So say it with me, with everything in your chest. I don't return, I rise. Write it in the comments like a scar turned into a sword. Let the world know you're not the one to crawl back to. Let them feel the echo of everything they could have had, if they had only seen you clearly the first time. And stay with me, because in the final chapter, we're going to seal the silence with power and remind them the ones they left behind are the ones they'll never rise to meet again. Number 8, the final move. They never expected disappearing into power. They always thought you'd be there, that no matter how long it took them to figure things out, no matter how many mixed signals they sent, how many games they played, how long they disappeared, you'd be exactly where they left you, waiting, hurting, hoping, maybe even still checking their page, still giving them free rent in your head. But here's the twist they never expected. You're gone, not just blocked, not just deleted, gone, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. That door they thought would always swing open, it's not just locked, it's been removed from the frame, set on fire, and the ashes scattered to winds they can't trace. They'll come crawling back. Of course they will. Egos always circle back to the source of their last supply. But this time, there's nothing left to feed on. Because you don't even speak the same language anymore. You're not driven by hope or pain or needing to be chosen. You're driven by peace. And peace is boring to those who only feel alive through chaos. Let's get into the psychology of it. They need to find you where they left you. It's how their ego survives the rejection they're now feeling. Because if you're still hurting, still wanting, still stuck in the same place, then they didn't really lose anything. But when they come back, half-hearted message, vague story reply, maybe a "hey stranger," and they realize you're not even emotionally available anymore, that's when the panic begins. That's when it finally hits. Not because they love you, but because they can no longer control you. This is the final move, my friend. Not revenge, not a clapback, just disappearance. You don't need to announce your glow-up. You don't need to drop a thirst trap or some philosophical caption. You don't need to let them see your transformation. Because true evolution doesn't shout. It simply walks away and keeps walking. That's what they'll never recover from. Not the silence, not the loss, but the realization that you're no longer reachable. That the version of you who wanted them, who loved them, trusted them, defended them, forgave them, is gone. Now they cry, but you glow. They remember the moments they could have chosen you. But you rise. They look for you in other people's eyes. But you no longer look back. You've become the one that got away. Not because you disappeared into bitterness, but because you disappeared into power. And they'll talk about you. Oh, they'll spin their stories, say you changed, say you switched up, say it's not the same anymore. And they're right, it's not. Because you've evolved into someone they no longer qualify for, someone who doesn't settle, someone who doesn't seek permission to be great, someone who doesn't answer to ghosts. So let them watch, let them ache, let them replay every time they chose ego over effort, pride over presence, games over growth. Let them remember you in flashes, a song, a scent, a place, a moment. And let every one of those memories remind them they had access and they wasted it. This isn't your punishment. This is their consequence, because you gave your heart in full and they showed up with empty hands. Now, you give nothing. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Say this with me, and say it for every version of yourself who stayed too long, cried too hard, loved too deeply for someone who never showed up fully. They'll come crawling back, but the version of me that wanted them no longer exists. Drop it in the comments like a burial stone, not to remind them, but to remind yourself of how far you've come, of how little you owe the past, and how bright your future burns without them in it. They had their chance. They lost it. You're not hiding anymore. You're not healing anymore. You're here, fully, powerfully, unreachable, and they'll never recover from that. So let's bring this full circle. They thought you'd wait. They thought you'd break. But you disappeared into power, and now they're stuck remembering someone they'll never reach again. That's not revenge. That's evolution. And if this message hit your soul, if you've lived this silence and turned it into strength, drop a comment below. I rise in silence. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs this fire, and subscribe for more dark Stoic wisdom. Because your glow up, it's only just begun, and they'll never be ready for who you're about to become.